This is mine. This is. So we had a budget conversation with folks. Rich, we had in here. Is John Ruff or something? Rich, I love these chairs. Like a week and a half.
Yeah, really.
All right.
I'd like to call to order the City Infrastructure Committee meeting. Have a roll call.
Counselor Moore?
Here.
Counselor Gibbs?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Counselor Armstrong?
Here.
Counselor Insel?
Here.
Counselor McFarland?
I'm here.
Okay, that have our reports from the department representatives and discussion with the councilors. Mike or Mike?
Nothing really to report. You know, we gave you an agenda last time, but it's trade and budget. That's what I had, but it hasn't started yet, so.
Very good. Any councilors have any questions? Open up works?
I noticed some blue outlines on some of our recently paved streets.
Location.
Locations for,
I think all of our, every time the contractor uses digging, but we want to make sure that they know where everything is, so. Let's pick up, I think it was a service dog.
so we're gonna have to dig up.
No, we want digging the road, want getting the right, digging the right area.
Okay, so it's not gonna dig up the recently paved.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
A lot of the markings you see when Andrew or Connor or other utility workers go out, even though you'll see blue marks and green marks and yellow marks, if you do appeal an area, they have to mark all the utilities in that specific area, even though it might not be a work area, so they extend it out beyond to make sure that the contractor or utility knows what's there exactly.
And we're gonna make the marks a little smaller. Okay.
I was questioned about that. They're digging up the road.
I mean, while you're working.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, we'll proceed with the, we have some presenters from the Liverpool Community Advisory Committee. There was going to be 2 reports, I believe. So Paula Cormier, would you like to come and give your report?
And I have some handouts that I'd like to give you so you can kind of follow along. So I am a member of the Environmental Enhancement Subcommittee, and I have a couple of proposals to put before the council. And there are some handouts going around so that you can follow along. And the first suggestion that I have is something that was brought to me by someone else from Ward 1, and I think it's an excellent idea, and I think it's something that's doable. It involves a park at the J Street location.
Pardon me, where?
J Street, where the city owns property there, and I believe there is a bike rack going in there right now, but it hasn't been developed per se as far as a actual park with facilities. So I'm going to, for the interest of time, I will just say you can read about why parks are important. I think we all understand that parks enhance our community, they bring people together, they, it's a place of recreation and so forth. And there are parks, various parks around the city, but right now we don't have a park of the type that I would like you to consider, which is a multi-purpose type of park. We do have many with playgrounds and some with picnic facilities. But what I'm envisioning is a park that includes all populations and abilities and disabilities. Because that's something we don't have, and that type of park is extremely popular in cities around the country and around the world, and they're well used. And this particular piece of property is right at the end of the, well, not at the end, but it's on the bike path, which is heavily used by people in the area. There are some photos of the Hamilton Street Playground. I'll get into that part a little bit later. But the idea of being in a place on the bike path that has a lake view and it's already property that the city owns, it's a wonderful place to consider doing this multipurpose park. Within a short distance, you have a large population of elderly people. You're also near a part of the ARC connection. And on the south end, where I live, just past the city limits, there's going to be another type of park going on there. But we don't have anything right there on the lake that ties us into the bike path and gives the multiple use recreational facility that I think would really enhance our community. So there are pictures of the property, and one of the ways to make it feasible would be to look at that Hamilton Street Playground, which is underutilized and partially vandalized. It's not easily maintained or monitored. So that piece of property, if you would have to go through the proper processes because you would have to alienate it as a park. New York State has requirements, so I did add a little piece about the different types of processes that would have to be gone through. But it's a doable process if indeed the city were to use that property to sell to a developer. It would be a win-win because not only would you have the funds from the park sale, but also if a developer were to use it to put in apartments or whatever, that would bring a tax base into the city as well. So it's something that could be done in stages. It would not have to be done all at once. Obviously, there would be some transitions to make. But as far as playground equipment goes, if the Hamilton Street Park was repurposed, then that playground equipment could be moved. And also there is quite a nice number of playground equipment pieces that were once used by the kids station that have been sitting out in a flatbed truck for years. And I heard that the original purpose was to be give them to the facility that takes in children on the base, but they already have purchased their own new equipment, so that equipment is just sitting there. So that might be something that could be negotiated as well. As far as getting, I envision having some equipment that would be accessible and available to people who have disabilities and elderly people who are not able to use the equipment that others are able to use. And that type of equipment can be funded through grants, and oftentimes too, there are agencies that will help out with that type of thing because they serve that population. And I have to say that having lived near the bike path, I can see all those people. There are people coming out from Lake Forest, people coming out from Pine Harbor with their walkers and so forth. There are vans that could take them out there. Even simple things like having a lawn swing would make it accessible to a lot of people who don't have the balance or the agility to use regular swings. Because when we think of parks and playgrounds, we're thinking of children, but I'm thinking of all ages and populations, a picnic area, and possibly eventually, and this is something that really would enhance the whole project, is exercise equipment. Until I had seen this concept in use, I didn't think too much of it, but I have seen it being used in other communities, and it's quite a valuable thing to have. I know that they're gonna be redoing some of the Healthy Lung Trail. This is something that's right out there, and that's another plus, is that it's more easily to monitor it, because it is visible. It is out there where it's not behind some trees or in a corner somewhere. It's where people can access it, watch it. The neighborhood people would be watching it as well. But I'm thinking that it also would be a place for interaction between different generations, which is really, really important to the mental health of everyone, is to have that mix. And a lot of the people who live in those senior homes do not necessarily have that intergenerational interaction that would really be helpful to them, and also to the children who don't usually get to see the elderly as well. And it promotes acceptance of people who are different. And I'm thinking of the people from the ARC, my daughter being one of them. Just, because I know that she has balance issues, and that she gravitates towards the type of things that are easier for her to maneuver. Are there any questions?
No, I've heard of the idea of dealing with the Hamilton space differently,
Mhm.
and I'm receptive to the ideas, and I appreciate the attention you've given to this matter. Great, love to make that space more accessible to people.
Well, and if it's multi-use, then you're going to, I think you would be surprised at how much use that would get. And it would be an enhancement for people coming into Plattsburgh on the bikes and from the boats as well. So my next suggestion has to do with making a better connection, a historical connection between the city of Plattsburgh and, well, not the city center and Ward 1 and the base. Because right now, we each are kind of doing our own thing, and even though we all know that major things happened on the base or in that area with the Battle of Plattsburgh, and there are museums there, people aren't seeming to make that connection that we're part of the city, which, and we have a lot of rich history there that we could share with the people in the city center and with tourists, and vice versa, that we could make it a stronger connection. I went to the first Clinton County Historical Conference in Beekmantown earlier in the summer, and it was brought forward by the New York State historian that our local histories are being lost to the younger generations, and also not being promoted as much as they could be by the present generation. So what I'm hoping, and I've already got buy-in from the Clinton County Historical Association, both the director and the president have agreed to help us facilitate something that would strengthen the connection, make us more noticeable and more visible to people in the area and people outside of the area. The president is also involved with the Adirondack Coast Cultural Alliance. So she has a lot of connections and is willing to help use some of those connections. So it could be something like, right now they have these, I don't know if you have copies of this, the Base Museum campus. They're going to be updating them a bit. Originally, it was thought that maybe we could be included in that, but it might not materialize that way in this particular brochure, but we were talking about what are ways to get the message out. Brochures are one way, but also there are publications like Due North, Northern Exploring, the Adirondack Coast magazine, and the Historical Association has connections with these people already. They have relationships, and so if we partner together, it would help bring costs down. It would make it more effective for us as far as if a website already exists, how do we link to it? How do we get people? Actually, I'm thinking about when Jane Desitel came, and she was talking about one of the things that was a big problem at the beach, for instance.
Literature.
Where there's empty places for brochures. So getting our information out is vitally important, but also making us all feel as unified, which I think is helpful for all of us. And there's different ways we can do it. The pamphlets, websites, publications, local press, and signage was another thing. I know that there's a committee that does that. There's a committee for most everything. But maybe some signage, even if it's just something that points people in the right direction, that there is more down there. And I've heard people talking at the museums, what else is there in Plattsburgh? So depending on your background and knowledge, yes?
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, I thought that the Clinton County Historical Society was working on a project that would improve the signage that could be
Yes.
put on. And I lost track of that, so
Okay.
where are they now?
So what happened with that is that they had to have matching funding, and that was the stickler. But when I was talking with the president, she said that there may be ways to do a smaller project, and perhaps it wouldn't
Right.
cost as much input from someone else to match. It might be as I say small, as $1,000 versus the 10 or whatever it was that they originally were told that they had to match. So however it's worked out, they're willing to help us
Right.
make it
I
happen.
think they were going through the Lakes to Locks program, and they were looking for funding there.
Well,
Do you
and
know the
that
story?
would be something to look further into.
Yeah.
I know that they have a lot of irons in the fire, but they want to partner with us. They want to help us as well to get the name out there, get the branding out, make the connection, and then also they do a lot of events, what's going on. And sometimes it involves the city as well, or the county. But truth be known, we're all part of this bigger picture. And the more we get out there, the better. So however we do it, it's to our advantage. So I'm thinking if the board is willing to let the Historical Association partner with us, that we can explore some doable things that we can put forward to make this connection stronger and make our brand something that it's going to be in the airports, it's going to be in the bus stations, it's going to be on the racks everywhere, where people go, oh, Plattsburgh is a destination place, and it involves all of the city, not just the city center. Not that there aren't some publications out about Ward 1, as you know, but they don't connect very well.
Right. We need to strengthen that, is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's a win-win for us as well, in that it doesn't take a lot of money and time if we can partner with other agencies who are willing to pick up some of the workload and make those connections, and then bring forth the ideas so that we can assess them and see what's doable and what needs more work. So are there any questions about that?
No, thank you for your work.
And
Yeah,
what,
thank
I'm
you.
sorry, what was the organization you were talking about? The Historical Society?
Yes, the Clinton County Historical Association. They have their museum on the base.
Okay.
But they do much more than just, they do a lot of advertising all over. So it gets the word out better. If it's separate entities doing it, I know the chamber has a site, other people have sites, but if you can somehow link them together where it's in a brochure, or it's in some advertising, where you can go to get the information, not that you're gonna put it all in a publication.
Right.
But when we had I think it was the first meeting of the full livable community meeting, a young woman from Plattsburgh State had approached me and said, if we come up with something that connects the two parts of the city with the historical connection, that they would be happy to do the article. They would take the pictures, they would do the article and put it in one of their publications. And I thought, wow, because if you ever have looked at that, it's a really nice glossy publication that, that's like free advertising. So I'm thinking that would be something that we should look into. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. George and Joan?
There was enough going on in terms of the livability committee, and we're on the environmental committee, and even within that, there were an awful lot of things that needed to be broken down and looked at. George and I were kind of looking at it in terms of benefits to both residents and visitors. And one of the first things that struck us as we were talking about how this can go forward is that Plattsburgh would really benefit from doing some long-term planning and thinking about what's going to work out well environmentally for things off into the future. We all agreed that Lake Champlain and the Saranac River are probably our two most valuable assets environmentally. And let me open it up to George to talk a little bit about the river and some of those issues.
Initially, we were told that we were supposed to come up with short-term kind of goals. And then this 10-year study came out, or this 10-year-old study came out, and that seemed to be the focus of where the committees were going. So some of these things may not be things that can be accomplished quickly, but we hope that, you'll take them into consideration. I live on the Saranac River. I see its use, I see its misuse. There's awful lot of garbage on that river if you go up and down it. I had suggested that they start from the dam and go down and just do a whole cleanup. They bring big machines in there all the time when that reclamation site is in business, and it just needs to be cleaned up. It's a mess from one end to the other. There's just debris all over if you take a walk through. Accessibility to that river. It's
Poor.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, if we want it as an asset, and it is an asset, it's beautiful, and it runs right through the city. Our suggestions were that we get the bridges fixed, and for more walkability. Everybody doesn't have a car in this city, so to get from one end to the other, once they closed down the Saranac Bridge on my end of my street, it made it just difficult for people to get over across town and back around. And I understand it's getting ready to be built again, rebuilt, but it still sits idle, as does that reclamation area over there. It's an eyesore, and I haven't seen any activity over there, because when you know there's activity, when they're cleaning up that dredge site, you can hear it, it's going on. And this is the second summer when nothing's happened there. And I've questioned a few people in authority, and they're gonna clean up the other end of it. Clean up the other end of it. You're not gonna clean it up if you're not doing it. These people, GE, I don't know who has pushed with those folks, or why the stall is on, but that site just sits there. And I envision that site as cleared away, seeded grass, put a beautiful amphitheater in there, build some suspension bridges to it, and access it. Just be a beautiful spot for a beautiful amphitheater. Down at Westport, they built a beautiful stage down there, if you haven't seen it. Something similar to that. That'd be a beautiful area for recreation. You're not gonna be able to build on it because it is a reclamation site, I'm pretty sure. Let's see, what else were we?
Imperial Dam.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
Okay, all right.
We can talk about the Imperial Dam.
Yeah.
Atlantic salmon have been spotted in the lake. It's been how many years?
God, I don't know.
They've spotted it 10, 15, 20? Longer than that.
Longer than that, I think.
Anyway, they spotted Atlantic salmon in the lake. Let's get that dam, get the salmon ladder up, and let's encourage that, which would encourage fishermen, which would encourage people to come here, and even, local folks, get their lines wet in there. But that just sits idle, and that area up there by the Imperial Dam's a mess as well. I'm not sure whose property that is. And back to the river, I had mentioned and spoke about having a white water park. Saranac Lake came back with a feasibility study on fixing that whole river they have running through the city, Saranac Lake. And they're making it into a kayak run. maybe this river isn't conducive to that, but the thought is, clean it up, get an area where, you know, you could ingress, egress, park. I was thinking the old football field, that whole area, that you could build structures there, you could build intake, you know, just have a nice area.
Do you mean by behind the gym or behind,
The old football, by the,
The end
I'm
of Angel
sorry,
Drive?
Memorial Gym?
yeah.
At the end of Angel Drive?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. That
Okay.
area down there.
Uh-huh.
You know, it sits idle, I think, at this point.
That belonged to us or the school?
I think the football field belongs to the school.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my boy played down on that field years ago.
But looking at, if we don't have, and I understand we don't have enough whitewater to do much in the way of certainly whitewater kayaking, but, there should be water sports and, I mean, at the very least, plop a tube in and enjoy the river. And
It's seasonal. When the high water is up, I saw these wild kayakers coming down. There must have been a dozen in their group, you know, with the helmets and all. They were just flying around and just having a great time out there at the high water level. It's a little lower now, but you can still get a kayak down that river easily. But again, you know, get the debris out of the way, get the shrubs off the river. I mean, if you walk down the bike path on my side of town, you can't see the river. It's all grown in. All this sumac is grown in. And the city will come back and trim it off the bike path, because, you know, they wanna have that clear. They throw the debris over the side, but we're not supposed to, are we, Mike? No. But the city throws the debris over the edge, and it just lays there, and so, when I say clean it up, I mean, you know, trees.
landscape it?
Yeah, just clear it out, make it beautiful, because it has the potential to be a beautiful attraction. Speaking of the bike path, Mike Kelly and I sat right across the street from where I am, and he was just walking along, and I caught him, and there was 5 deposits, dog deposits.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, let's get some little poop stations down on the river, along there, you know, wherever, you know, people walk their dogs. Most people are good about it, and if I see them with a bag in their hand, I say, use my garbage can, you know, dump it over there, don't put it over, you know, they start just tossing over the river edge. You know, it's like, don't do that. Garbage bins, wouldn't hurt to have more garbage bins out there. And we had recommended, you know, from the Wilcox dock, the bike path should be extended from the Wilcox dock to the Battle of Plattsburgh Commemoration Park. Let's see, I think I covered that. I just want, Jane had spoke about the beach. I don't know if she had mentioned accessibility to that beach. Real quickly, I was down there, and they have those concrete steps towards the other end, and I watched an older gentleman try to navigate those, and it's very difficult to get off of that beach. On that end, you know, you need to build some, you know, get some pressure-treated lumber, build a few steps, slam them in there, pull them out during the winter so that the spring, you know, up and down doesn't go, but just get some steps in there for people to get out and in. Go to, if you, on your little field trip, you'll see what I mean. You know, go down there and you'll see how hard it is to get out towards the other end for older folks.
When I was
Or
there,
people with disabilities, not just older folks.
I went over there this weekend. I noticed that a lot of those like concrete steps were actually closed off, and like only the wooden steps were open.
Yeah, for whatever, you know, either knock them out and put in something stable and sturdy with a handrail, you know, so people can get in and out. And speaking of that beach, let's put a boardwalk all the way to the end, down to where that new construction is. You know, the dunes down there, have you ever traveled down there, walked in the back, it's beautiful in there. Put a, you know, and scrape it off. And as far as this swimming at your own, you know, swim without a lifeguard and all the noise you make about it, swim at your own risk. Wherever you
Signage
swim.
like that,
Wherever
right?
you swim.
Yeah.
That's why you have liability insurance, and that's why you have lawyers. You know, if you're worried about it, you know, that's why you have insurance. So they should put the signs up. Swim at your own risk.
Yeah.
So you don't have the lifeguard tweeting at you 3,000 feet away. Okay, I'll put my surfboard in here, you know? Anyway. And you were gonna go,
I was gonna go on to trees.
trees.
Yes, trees. We heard from an impassioned plea from Paula Coffins Lacombe about planting more trees. And if we're talking environmental things that could improve the city, that's one of them. I was surprised that we barely get trees cut down that need to be cut down, let alone planting anything. And we could plant things with organizations like volunteers, the Boy Scouts, garden clubs. Some of you may be aware, Lowe's took on some work at the Vilas home in order to improve that. So there are organizations out there that are looking for good deeds to do, and planting trees, especially if you can coordinate and take advantage of Arbor Day, would be a plan to put in place to make sure that that happens on a regular basis. Also, I would suggest that you obtain resident input about where the trees go, for instance, in front of people's homes on the portion that the city owns, and what to plant. You may end up finding out that this woman absolutely loves blue spruce and would love to have that, and you plant a ginkgo instead, and she's not a happy camper. So being able to talk to residents about it, and also the soil conservation districts offer trees, lots of trees at exceedingly low prices. Now admittedly, they're very small trees, they're gonna start small, but you know, we're looking to the future. That's kind of what our committee did, is let's look to the future and try and make sure we have things that make the city worth living in years from now.
Joan, why are you talking about putting trees? I'm guessing you're talking about in front of people's houses, between the sidewalk
The
and the
median.
road?
Yeah, in the median and around town. Paula lives on Johnson Avenue, and she said trees have come down there, and the people who walk their animals want shade for dog walking and that kind of thing. And it's just it's nice. It looks terrific. I was a couple years ago. I was up on the top floor of the Keogh building, and I looked out. And when you look at Plattsburgh, it just looks like green on top. It's beautiful. But since then, we've lost some trees. And we're going to continue to lose some as long as we have problems like the emerald ash borer and some of the other funguses that are going around that create problems. So let's not leave it necessarily up to private citizens. Let's help with that effort through a program that includes them, and we can do something, and maybe grant-wise something might be available where you buy it, we plant it. You know, the money will be available. That way we'll make sure they get in the ground, they go where they're supposed to go. Because if we buy it, you plant it, chances are the trees will end up in somebody's garage and, oh, I just didn't have time. And well, they're dead now. So it would be better if you buy it, we plant it. You know, here's your choice of what you can pick from, and here's what the cost is, and you go ahead and pay for it, we'll come and we'll plant it. Make sure it gets in the right place.
Joan, when you say you buy it, you plant it, the we is.
City plants it.
The
City plants it.
you is the resident,
Okay.
the we is the city of Plattsburgh, with a crew that will show up and make sure trees get in where they're supposed to be and not where they're not supposed to be. So we're not trying to create problems, we're trying to solve them. We also talked about the fact that the lake is a fabulous resource, and we really don't have much in the way of boat tours. And can we use our marina to facilitate that? The shuttle to Valcourt is a great idea. The cost is a little on the prohibitive side for a lot of people. So doing something, and we felt that there needed to be a two-pronged approach. One for history and how fabulous to be down there and incorporate Valcourt Island, the history of the Battle of Plattsburgh, that kind of thing. And also, for people who are not so interested in history, but perhaps more interested in food, a dining cruise that gets them out on the water and gets them able to enjoy things.
I mean, how exciting would it be for someone, that, you know, you take them on a cruise and say, this is where Benedict Arnold had his ship, right here.
Yeah,
This is where it's at.
the very
You
site.
know, I mean, it's just, there's just so much potential there as far as these, you know, what we were
So now-
brainstorming here.
How much does the shuttle to Valcourt cost?
$25,
per person?
yeah.
And how often does it leave?
Once on the weekends, once a day.
Yeah,
depending
not
on
very-
Where does it
Saturday.
launch from? I don't even
Yeah,
know
yeah,
about
it's
it.
too much, right? It's
I never heard of it before.
Yeah,
Me
where
neither.
does it launch from?
Dock,
Peru
I
Dock,
believe.
okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
Peru Dock,
Yeah,
And
Okay.
Is that that's a private entity, I believe. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Mhm.
don't you remember Frank Paps
Yeah.
Of
boat.
course, I played-
The spirit of Ethan Allen, I mean,
played
before we
on-
got
I
the
played
marina.
music on the- with Frank Pepper.
That's
Yeah,
not
right, of
something.
course you
That's
did.
always the cool thing. Oh my God.
There was a boat that docked down, by the Naked Turtle. This was years ago.
It
They
was
did
the,
that.
Paps.
the spirit
it?
of Ethan Allen, after Frank Papp's booze
That-
cruise.
That was his junkyard down there.
Yeah, it was.
The Juniper, yes.
yes, the
Anyway,
Juniper.
okay, onward ho, I ended up on the environmental committee because I was the one who was interested in recycling and composting. And, other communities do it effectively and offer composting, to residents. And it seems to me that we need to take a look at other communities, find out the pros and cons, how they do it, and set up something so that citizens can compost. I know I've got a not particularly big lot in the city, and I've got quite a bit of stuff that I turn out, I wanna get rid of all the buckthorn, so you guys can have that. But the rest, I try and compost myself, and I've got a really big pile, as a matter of fact.
Are you talking about food garbage or just debris from your gardens?
I put garden stuff in my
Okay.
compost because I'm a little worried about attracting skunks.
Yeah,
But if we had a controlled environment, and in fact, somebody even suggested one in every ward, where people could come and drop off, their food garbage plus their, yard waste.
I know they collect it over in Vermont, they put it
yeah,
on
it's
the curb.
part of the
Compost, yeah.
municipal service,
Yep,
right?
Yep,
Right.
it has become part of the municipal service.
But unless that is monitored, you would get people
Oh, yeah.
throwing everything.
In Durham, North Carolina, they don't do it municipally. They have private contractors who have taken that business, and you can, contract, a homeowner can have pickup arranged through that means.
But I'm incorporating all the restaurants and everything.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah,
and keeping it out of the landfill.
I'm really interested
Just
in
keeping it
that.
out of the landfill. I mean, that
Don't we-
landfill, have you been?
That's right,
It's
absolutely.
like a mountain now.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
recently, nobody except myself and one other person wrote a letter to the DEC objecting to the fact that Casella wanted to increase the number of trucks bringing stuff into the landfill, which means we're gonna be filling it up even faster. So, yeah, it's time to start to think about these things. Included in this, we talked a little bit about, Christmas tree pickup and the fact that, right now, Burlington has a wood burning facility, from which they create electricity.
Did you see,
Now-
that was on the news the other day.
This is not agreed, this is not something that we can do within the next 3 to 6 months, but it's something we ought to be considering for the future. If we're looking to be, a green city, which, we're just simply lucky that we have as much hydropower as we do. But now it's time to look at what we can do as citizens and as the city of Plattsburgh government, to try and enhance that.
Can I interject there, just a bit? I mean, we have a stockpile, Mike, you can probably, back me up on this, but up on Reeves Lane, there's more wood up in that area chopped, that's where they take everything that's been cut down in the city and they pile it.
Yeah.
And if you've been back there, you might wanna go on your field trip up in there.
Yeah,
You
been there.
might not, you might get lost. You gotta take your GPS with you. It's unbelievable in there. The stacks, I mean, it's 2, 3 stories of just chip stuff
Yeah.
all over.
And so you're saying burn that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know, well, who knows what's gonna happen with that whole area between, Colin and, what's his name up there? What's-
Another
what's his-
subject.
What's his fellow's name? The supervisor up there.
Cashman,
Yeah.
Michael
Mike
Cashman.
Cashman, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when they figure that all out, but if we do obtain that land, which we should, because, they've got plenty of land outside of the city, they don't need that. That's my argument, don't be so greedy. But, if you clear that whole area out, I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of lumber up there. And, it'd be a great place to put a composting and a wood burning, facility, but anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't-
No, you're fine.
I agree.
you're fine.
I agree.
But you need to go up there and look at it, all y'all need to go up, take a drive through there. And if you're not amazed,
Take something with higher clearance.
It's
than
been a
mine,
while.
'cause I almost
Maybe
got
it's
stuck back
grown
there.
since I went.
Well, I'm not going to my car.
Mike loves to give tours, right, Mike?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, we recommend that you take a look up there. it just kind of to summarize, I think some of the things that you might have takeaways from the environmental committee, are that we really need, in the city, we really need public restrooms. They should be numerous, and everything within the city should be well maintained. People are willing to accept something that's not brand spanking new, provided that it's neat, clean, and well taken care of. You know, if it's painted and it's acceptable, that's fine, people are okay with that. So it doesn't have to be brand new, but we need to take care of the things that we have. Every attempt should be made to keep the river frontage available for public use and visible. The city, anytime any kind of project is done, anytime either the construction of even a park, not just buildings, but consideration should be given to visuals. That is, do we have a view of the mountains? Do we have a view of the water? And if so, how can we maintain what view we have to benefit the public? Because that's part of what makes Plattsburgh, Plattsburgh. As part of what makes it so special is that we get to see the lakes, the mountains, and we have the river running right through it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
So, just real quick, was everyone part of the environmental committee? I heard environment, I think, on every single one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
Paula?
just one subgroup. There will only be, I think, one presenter from.
Are we
the other
gonna
two
get
groups.
copies of your reports?
Okay.
No,
Okay, and you
Well-
send us copies?
just kidding.
Okay,
You can make copies.
yeah, cause
Yeah.
I think there's some back and forth that we can
No, there
have.
was there were four on our, Jane. Paul.
Right, Jane gave us hard copies, but, yeah,
Let me give it to the most important person here.
there you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your work. Before we adjourn, I forgot an issue that, I'll bring it up in new business.
Okay, well, just keep things moving forward at this point. The agenda items, do we just want to vote to bring those to the regular meeting?
I'll make that motion.
And second, and John will second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's that, old
Actually, we
business,
think we need to do roll call, don't we? We need
Counselor
roll
Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
What just happened? Did we adjourn?
We we
No.
moved the
No.
items to the agenda.
Okay, yeah. Do we have any old business? Any new business?
Yes, I sent the committee photos of the Terry Gordon path where apparently, I'm not sure what agent was used to kill the vegetation that grows along the fence, but from Tall Pines, well, no, a little bit further down, to the end of Lake Forest, complete dead vegetation. And I know that, a couple of years ago, we struck an agreement with Lake Forest, and they had an arborist come down, and we gave them permission, and they got permission from Canadian Pacific to kind of manage so that their vista would be improved. But I'm worried because it looks like some kind of herbicide must have been applied to kill all that vegetation. I can forward you the picture, or you can go down, and I just need to get to the bottom of what kind of agent and how they received permission, whoever received permission, if they did, to do that.
Okay.
All right?
Are you talking about where the fence is?
Yeah,
And so the
all of the
vegetation-
vegetation just on the other
On
side of
other
the
side.
fence.
Yes, yeah.
And then it looked to me like some on the other side of the tracks as well.
That wasn't CB rail, was it?
Why? Why would they have never done it before?
They go through and they clear when they have areas that are tight.
Overgrown, but I mean, this wasn't even very profuse vegetation. And then it stopped on the other side of Lake Forest. So, I mean, the same kind of vegetation continues all the way down from Lake Forest down to the rest of the path. It's just this part in front of Lake Forest. So I was trying to connect the dots. I couldn't without some kind of verification.
Good.
Thank you.
Time to vote.
I will.
I can send it as we sent it to us.
Okay, thank you.
Was there any other new business? If not, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion? Can I borrow your pen?
Second, Colin.
Need a vote.
Councilor Moore?
You need a vote.
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Continuing that business time, we can begin our work session for the common council tonight. Is there anything on the agenda side, like, would you like to have an opportunity to have some kind of discussion on?
Yeah, we received this other document, from Director Miller regarding the scoping project. Now, I read the one that we had received via email, that just laid out, a resolution to make the announcement to the public that this scoping document would be available and so forth, but what's this?
Mike.
This is the
Mike.
actual scoping document? Okay.
What are you talking about, Rochelle? Oh, here it is, never mind.
So we're only voting tonight to put that announcement that it's available for public viewing and that there'll be a hearing. That's the only decision we're making regarding it tonight?
Yes, well, you're formally accepting this draft scoping document, so you're receiving it. And that would then trigger the next step, which is the publication on a state environmental news bulletin, as well as the public hearing, which is also gonna be noticed to the public as well. Once the public has an opportunity to make comments, our engineering consultant will take every comment that's been submitted
Right.
and then finalize the scoping document. So
Right.
again, the world is not the merits of the project by any means, it's just, does this scoping document adequately describe
Right.
what should be studied and how it should be studied?
And technically, if we had feedback to provide, we could provide it as well.
100%.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I had a question about 7A, and I guess this goes to Mr. Brody. There was some discussion last week at our meeting about these fees, but also there was some concern, and I'll admit that I'm the one that expressed a concern about the expense incurred by the department, the labor expense incurred by the city in your department to set up and put down these barriers and so on. So we amended the resolution to include that the city may also require reimbursement for actual labor costs incurred by city employees for the accommodation, setup, delivery, and/or retrieval of city property. Just wondering if the cost involved with the cones, the barricades, the staging, and so on, if those costs would cover the expense that is incurred for setup and takedown of.
Well, I think the cones and the barricades are pretty reasonable, what you got there, because usually we put 20 cones out and they actually come to the yard too. And then barricades, also depending how many barricades they want, they come pick them up, there's a large number of barricades, we'll deliver and drop them off to these works at the site, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Your staging, that's, you're doing each 4x8 section, depending how many sections of staging they want, they may cover it. So we'll keep track of what it costs to deliver them, set them up, take them down, and bring them back.
Okay. Now, when you say staging, you mean basically risers, small?
Yeah, the risers,
Mhm.
yes.
And the trailer stage?
It's $200 per event. They usually get a tractor, haul it to their site.
We don't typically bring it or
No.
take it?
No.
Yeah, and so my thoughts are like, it says minimum and like, $200 event, if there's something coming up and they're asking DPW to be more, couldn't that be estimated beforehand and just thrown into?
Right, no, and I agree with that, so I'm just wondering if we, where it says that the minimum fee, the city may also require reimbursement, that if we can somehow change the language such as the user would be notified of such charges in advance.
I agree with that.
So I mean, just, it would help you too, that if you know there's a large event and it's gonna require manpower, people power,
Right,
that you would be covered and it wouldn't be
right.
incurring
Well,
unnecessary
they-
expense.
Staging at the fairgrounds over here, Relay of Life, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And we set it up for them, they set the tent up and we put the staging.
Yeah, so my thoughts on that, we could just
Uh,
get rid of the amendment language, but have a policy that, you know, this is the minimum. And just, you know, so if we think that labor costs for a trailer stage are, you know, are gonna be like $400, and then you just say, all right, the cost for this event then will be $400 instead of $200. And we don't need to put in there anything.
But I'm just
about
wondering if
reimbursement.
people would say, okay, oh, well, I can get the stage for $200 and they wouldn't have any idea. I would feel more comfortable with having it written in the resolution so that there's a record of the fact that there could be additional charges. But they would know about them in advance.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Any other items that you'd like to discuss? If not, I could accept council reports at this time. We've got the regular package of reports. Is there any additional reports beginning with governance strategy and city operations, Councilor Armstrong?
Yes, Mayor, you asked for an update regarding Jeff and my meeting, and Patrick wasn't able to attend, regarding Socrata. And we did review the product with the sales rep, but we just haven't gotten together in order to kind of put our heads together regarding our recommendations. So I will try to meet with Jeff and Patrick this week in order to do that. Other than that, I just want to say that the task force for climate smart, Plattsburgh Sustainability Committee, what is our task force called?
That's close enough.
Okay. Anyway, they're meeting the 21st, but there's an auxiliary organization that's made up of environmental groups, and I went to a meeting of these groups last night, and I recruited them to join our coalition, and I'm going to be introducing to them the idea of conducting a greenhouse gas inventory for the wider community with their help on August 20th, which is Tuesday in a couple weeks, and I invite the public to join forces with us.
Terrific. City infrastructure, Councilor Moore?
Well, we just had our meeting, I just wanted to remind everyone that Council Gibbs and myself have been meeting with the various departments in infrastructure to identify efficiencies for the coming budget year, so we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have some recommendations on that soon also.
Finance and budget, of course, Councilor Kelly isn't with us tonight. I'm hopeful he'll be back with us by the next meeting. I did brief him on my progress towards the mayor's budget, give you a little bit of an update, and Chamberlain Marks just gave me the status of where we are so far. We're getting quite close.
You got the whole thing except for the capital expenditure plan.
Right, I think we might have mentioned last week, and Chamberlain Marks, I think, had that number for you last week. We're about $140,000 short of the fund balance surplus goal that you set out for us in the 5 to 10 year plan. We do want to talk a little bit more with Councilor Kelly about this.
Is that year to date or projected 140?
For next year, for
For next
2020. You had a goal of generating a surplus of $500,000 to start building up that fund balance. So we're pretty close to being there. It showed a tax increase approaching, I think, 2%. I guess the tax rate down to about $12 from $12.20 per thousand.
Levy increase.
And still within the tax cap, of course.
What's the cap? this year?
6% negative tax rate.
What's the cap?
Just over 2%, 2.2.
2.2 is what we built into the mayor's budget so far.
So So you take the 2.2% increase and then the 1.6% tax mill rate reduction, that is consistent with the 3.8 increase in the levy itself. So all those numbers all add up properly. That's how we arrived at that. But before I finalize that and send it out, there's still some work that I know you all want to have input in. Councillor Kelly wants to include as well. We are still talking about additional revenue source. Was the cash earnings that we expect to be able to generate next year on our cash balances in there yet?
Yeah, that's built in already.
Okay, so we're getting pretty close. As a matter of fact, if Councillor Kelly were here, we'd probably be willing to issue it right now, but I would like to wait another week or so and really have a chance to sit down and talk to them. And I certainly appreciate all the work that your committees are doing and you're doing as well in your committee on recreation. So it's coming along. Certainly will be out before the end of this month.
Okay.
Continuing on, any additional reports from Public Safety, Councillor Gibbs?
No updates at this time.
And Plattsburgh Public Library, Councillor Ansel?
No report?
MLD Board President, Councillor McFarland.
Yes, we will have a meeting coming up on the last, I think it's the 29th, I forget, but it's the last Thursday of the month, so mark your calendars, because it should be a good one. And that's no further updates.
Thank you. Any other items that people would like to discuss from the agenda? Seeing none, you've earned yourself a 1-minute recess before we begin again.
Where's my finance note?
1 minute of cooling, huh? Thank you. This is actually pretty handy. Did you read that?
No, I haven't. I noticed you took lots of things.
Yeah.
And I was making a mistake.
That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
If you're ready, let's please begin tonight's meeting of the Common Council with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Councilor Armstrong,
Here.
Councilor Kelly, Councilor Gibbs,
Here.
Councilor Ansel.
Here.
Councilor McFarland.
Here.
Councilor Moore.
Here.
Some of you were able to join me earlier today when we had our ribbon cutting for the new charging stations out front. I certainly appreciate all the people that helped make that possible, and it certainly dovetails very nicely in the work we're doing with the Sustainability Task Force and the Community Coalition as well. So that's very exciting. We have more charging stations already ordered. They'll be going up in such locations as across the Trinity Park and the Cumberland Hotel, former Cumberland Hotel parking lot on Court Street. Of course, when we build out the various other parking lots that we are anticipating, they'll include these charging stations. And well, and I asked also Mr. Tracy to consider a charging station down on the Broad Street lot near the Saranac, where the Saranac River Trail will be coming across once we get the new bridges installed. So that's very exciting. I should have brought my button with me to show off the new button for the Battle of Plattsburgh. That was very exciting. Just a wonderful young woman just came in, fourth grader came and won that prize, $100 prize for the best drawing, and that was an awful lot of fun. And Mr. Matthews and his team rolled out the itinerary for 4 days of really solid events coming up in September, so we're really excited about that. So I think it appears so far on paper already to be the most action-packed and exciting and history-filled event since the 2014 event, which was of course the 200th anniversary, so that's very exciting as well. And this week has just been chock full of a lot of activity. It gives me great pleasure tonight to issue a proclamation. Many of you know, have been following the fire that occurred on Adirondack Lane, and I'm incredibly proud of the work of our first responders earlier on this week, and I do want to recognize them today with a proclamation. Whereas every day the professional firefighters of the city of Plattsburgh and the city police put their lives on the line to serve the residents of the city. And whereas this past Monday, August 5th, the city firefighters and city police officers first responded to a potentially catastrophic fire on Adirondack Lane. Whereas fire departments from Plattsburgh District 3, Cumberland Head, Peru, and Morrisonville CVPH, Morrisonville EMS, and Clinton County Emergency Services all came to assist as well. And whereas when arriving on scene, city first responders made quick work of rescuing 13 people and extinguishing the fire in the 8-unit apartment building. And whereas patrol officers Minardi and Puchalski entered the building to determine if there were any residents present, but were rebuffed by the flames. And whereas police officers Minardi and Puchalski and Clark spotted a child in another second floor resident screaming for help from behind a window. And whereas the officers instructed the child to push out the air conditioner and lower the 2 small children down with them. And whereas patrol officers Puchalski and Minardi caught 2 small children and their mother in their arms to save them. And whereas under the direction of Captain Fazal and Lieutenant Mitchell, firefighters Howard and Ostrowski laddered the 2nd story of the building with 2 ladders under heavy smoke and heat conditions and rescued 8 children and adults who were trapped with no means of escape. And whereas firefighter Scholey operated the fire engine with multiple lines to rescue crews, had water to extinguish the fire and protect rescue efforts, and firefighters King and Rock deployed and operated hose lines to protect the rescue efforts and hold back and extinguish the fire. And whereas the following first responders assisted in saving lives that evening: Captain Fazal, Lieutenant Chris Mitchell, firefighter David Scholey, Craig King, Daryl Ostrowski, Michael Howard, Nicholas Rock, and patrol officers Mike Lawless, Emily Tucker, Christine Minardi, Devin Clark, and Danu Puchalski were on scene. And whereas these lives were spared by the heroic work of our city first responders and their mutual assistance colleagues, and for which the city could not be more grateful. Now therefore I, Colin L. Reed, Mayor of the City of Plattsburgh, New York, proclaim this week to be dedicated employee week in honor of the men and women who help keep our city safe. In witness thereof, I've attached my seal to these 2 proclamations I'd like to issue to both sets of first responders. Please continue.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on August 1st, 2019 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Gibbs and second by Councillor Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending August 7th, 2019 in the amount of $61,911.25 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Is there any other additional council reports you'd like to offer this time beyond the ones we did in work session? Seeing none, resolve the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public record of the city clerk's office. Moved by Counselor Gibbs and second by Counselor Renzel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences, recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills audited by the common council for the week ending August 9th, 2019 in the amount of $633,636.84 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor Renzel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. First, we have a motion to remove item 7A from the table. Moved by Counselor Renzel, second by Counselor McFarland. Got his hand halfway up. Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any individuals who'd like to address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight? There will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting. Okay, seeing that, I still think we have a first and a second then.
Who was it? I'm sorry.
Councilor Ensel and McFarland. All in favor of removing the item from the table?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion on the item itself.
I would like to, as we spoke in our work session, add an amendment to the resolution, an additional sentence, which will read, in such instances, the user will be notified of any additional changes, or any additional charges, in advance of the event. I'll reread that again. In such instances, the user will be notified of any additional charges in advance of the event.
Could be a semicolon, or just, I don't know.
Yeah, you could.
Were you seconding that, Councilor McFarland?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment.
And it is inserted where? At the end?
At the end.
Yes.
So in addition to minimum fee schedule, the city may also require reimbursement for actual labor costs incurred by city employees for the accommodation, setup, delivery, and/or retrieval of city property. And it would say
And
in
then
such
your
instances,
Good.
The user will be notified of any additional charges, and what was the
in
rest?
advance of the
In
event.
advance.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
I think it's a good addition. Mhm.
You didn't think the semicolon would work?
Well, a semicolon is completely acceptable in that situation, but would make it rather wordy.
Run-on sentence?
It's not a run-on sentence.
Not with a semicolon.
Not with a
No.
No,
semicolon.
it's a semicolon?
It would be appropriate. but
We have two dependent
It's cleaner.
clauses. We have two dependent clauses that connect to each other, so a semicolon would be appropriate.
2 English teachers and 3 economists at this table is pretty superior.
I forgot my strunk and white at home.
So let's vote on the amendment then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Amendment passes. Any further discussion on the item as amended?
Well, it's been on the agenda for 2 weeks, and we've had no public opposition. I haven't received any, so.
Good point.
Okay, roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves the city chamberlain to adjust the 2019 budgets for the general water and sewer funds for additional PW, snow and ice, sand and salt purchases, and for adjusting the interfund revenues for administrative cost chargebacks to the water and sewer funds according to the budget adjustment memo dated August 1st, 2019, attached as supporting documentation for the meeting minutes, along with the general fund transfer justification worksheet based on the 2018 actual costs.
Moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion.
Yeah,
What is
that?
PW? What is, should it, is there?
Works.
Okay, I thought a D may have been missing, Department of Public Works.
The exact title in the
Okay.
budget, PW Ice and Snow.
Okay.
Richard, what exactly is going on right here?
PW Snow and Ice. Pardon me?
What exactly is going on right here?
Budget adjustments.
Okay.
You may recall, we did the same thing about this time last year. We wanted to make sure that we were fully stocked up and our salt sheds were full, going into the next fiscal year.
I imagine
And I
it's
think
cheaper
we
to buy
got them at
salt right
cheaper,
now.
yeah, than during this time of year to,
Mhm.
Not necessarily.
no?
It can vary, but,
The price is the price, and you have to be able to, request as much as they're willing to give you at the current price. The price can go up next year. So they're getting as much as they can be allocated under the current county price. But these are just budget adjustments for the current 2019 budget.
and we
Can we buy
piggyback on
salt
the county
futures?
contract for this. They negotiate a price in advance.
Can we shorten this a little?
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council authorizes entering into a wastewater treatment plant operation agreement with Lion Mountain Wastewater Treatment Plant, Town of Dannemora, for the scope and reimbursement described in the memo made part of the minutes of this meeting, subject to the final contract approval of the mayor and city of Plattsburgh Corporation Council.
Moved by Counselor Moore, second by Counselor Ensel. Discussion.
I thought the memo made a lot of sense on that one, to tell you the truth, especially give them some experience in working outside of Plattsburgh, maybe some different
Experience.
circumstances. Yeah, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, so makes sense to me.
And of course, as you know, and this came up also when we approved a similar agreement with a group in Beacon in town. This, of course, this has no net cost to the taxpayers, we're fully reimbursed. It does allow Mr. Ruff and his team to leverage all their considerable expertise to help out neighboring municipalities. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to be able to share that service with them. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolution
Beth, I'd like to
accepting-
waive a reading and move to a resolution.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor of waiving the reading and moving the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the resolution itself.
We discussed this a little in the work session, but this is basically to accept the draft scoping document, and then it's open to the public to view, and everyone can kind of evaluate whether the scope of the project encompasses everything that should be encompassed.
Yep, there will also be a public hearing scheduled as well as publication, and then in addition to appearing at the public hearing, they can submit written comments a few days after the public hearing.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
There's no travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Or any new business or additional council reports?
I forgot to just follow up on an email that I forwarded, I believe, to you, and I might have forwarded to infrastructure as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I received a communication from someone who lives on Underwood, anyway, that it's a dead end, and she was concerned about there being a sign, no trucks allowed, and also she wanted to inquire about the possibility of installing a trash basket on the park there. It was unclear to me, though, it seems like that might be property that's owned by the property owner of the mobile home park. So,
Correct, for the no trucks allowed, I believe that's the case, and we have been putting out a trash receptacle like we do in many of our parks.
okay,
Uh,
that's our park, You're on
We do
Underwood?
put out one out there for a park that we maintain.
Okay.
But they've asked for a bin. Now the experience with DPW is when we put out a bin there, people were putting in their regular
Personal trash.
personal trash.
Yeah,
into
and we
there.
were actually,
What's a bin? What are the differences? I'm
A
sorry.
bin is like one of those big
Okay.
things that,
well, and just tying into what the Livable Community Subcommittee was suggesting to us about trash bins and even moving towards some more recycling services in some of our public spaces. And I was in a conversation with Mr. Matthews about how sometimes we have to weigh the merit of having a garbage bin and then the consequence of sometimes people putting their household garbage in there. And Mr. Matthews spoke up about possible solutions for that, for some of our garbage bins that are in these places, which include some kind of top that narrows the space in which,
Like a grate over the
It's a
top
log,
of the
yeah.
opening.
yeah, and so that you can't stuff a bag in, you can put your refuse in as, don't you remember that conversation? Anyway, maybe it wasn't with you, it was with Ethan, okay. Sorry about that. Well, but, I mean, if that is something citywide that discourages us from putting trash bins around, maybe a simple solution such as a different type of covering could be investigated. That's all.
I'm sure they'll give you some input and all that.
All right.
I do think we should have more trash cans or receptacles, whatever, around, and if we wanna do recycling, seems like a good idea
I
too.
think that's on our list.
And I also definitely want more, dog refuse things. I think we have one in the West Elcon Park, we have a few on the Terry Gordon bike path.
We do.
But I would love to see more around the city, certainly.
Right, and I'd just like to further, take a little bit of an opportunity. We really didn't have much time to go back and forth between committee members, but I do want to say how appreciated your work is and how creative and insightful your ideas are. And I want to assure you that they will be taken into consideration. I think I would hope that, somebody like me could come to your committee meeting and talk about ways of implementing some of the ideas, give you some background about some previous attempts to, address the issues you brought up. I look forward to some back and forth, and when I'm off the council, maybe I'll even join you guys if you're still in existence.
Thank you very much. I'll be happy to pass those on to my fellow committee members.
Thank you.
I agree, and I love the talks of parks and stuff like that. I might have sent an email about, is a Guardian article about how parks are used. I thought that was pretty interesting, and if we can incorporate that and some of those ideas into some new parks, I think.
Yeah, our committee is really taking a close look at our entire rec complex and trying to get a sense of a clear vision of what our priorities are and the way in which our complexes service our community. So that's going to be a discussion that will I hope guide us towards some budget decisions regarding the rec complex.
Thank you. Any other additional council reports at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up for additional public comments of any issue of mutual concern.
Good evening to you all. Jamie Schwartz, Vice President, Plattsburgh Professional Firefighters. First, I'd like to start off, thank you very much for the proclamation. Our firefighters put their lives on the line every day to protect the people of Plattsburgh, so it's very humbling to kind of be honored. We're just doing what we're supposed to be doing though. What I do want to address though is that same structure fire. We dodged another bullet. 32 Adirondack Lane, fire on Monday night, came in about 10:30 p.m. Firefighters were alerted to a possible structure fire. En route, they were updated that there were many people trapped. On that day, we had 7 firefighters on duty. They were alerted on arrival they had heavy fire on arrival. Lieutenant Mitchell, on the first in truck, made the quick decision as to what apartment he was gonna try to rescue first. Due to fire flow path and fire conditions, you have to make a choice when you don't have enough people to go to either place. So he went and raised some ladders with firefighter Oschowski. Firefighter Oschowski, while Lieutenant Mitchell was raising a ladder, also raised a 26-foot ladder by himself. 26-foot ladder should have 2 to 3 firefighters assisting in raising this. They got the job done, they managed to rescue the people they needed to. Once they got all the people out of that apartment, they then moved over to the other apartment where our police officers were also assisting in getting people out of that building. They put the ladder back up and rescued the last victim that was still in that apartment. When Lieutenant Mitchell put that ladder up there, he said he was told by that person, it's about time the ladder got here. We don't have the people to be able to split our crews to go each way in that situation. Obviously, that gentleman was very distressed, thought it took too long to get a ladder to him. Different outcome of that fire could have potentially happened. If any of those people had been unresponsive or we needed to search for them, we only had 4 firefighters to be able to search for 13 people. If we had to search for them, more than likely somebody wouldn't have survived. Thankfully, the little boy in the apartment, as I read, was awake enough to alert his family that there was a fire and conditions were worsening. Every day, firefighters are fighting previous injuries from this job. It's a very physically demanding job. We try to do our best to stay in shape, but every day, one firefighter's a move away from a back injury. We have firefighters right now that have had previous back injuries that they're trying to milk to get through and be able to help the people of Plattsburgh. By continuing to run the fire department at these unsafe levels of staffing, it shows a lack of knowledge of what we do, about our jobs, and a lack of caring for our firefighters and their families, and its constituents, and overall negligence toward the city. We're willing to sit down and work on coming up with a fiscally responsible way to do this. We've started talking with management, but it seems those talks have failed recently and they've kind of stalled. We just had another firefighter, like I said, we had a firefighter that was injured on this fire. He was operating a hose line by himself. The other firefighter that was with him was Lieutenant Mitchell, who has other jobs to do as well. He was backing him up, but he also was using our thermal imaging camera to see where fire conditions were. We should have had 2 other people on that hose line as well. NFPA, which I gave you all the last time, says that that's what we're supposed to have. Thankfully, his injuries are not life-threatening. So that might be okay with you guys, but it's not with us. It's not with me, it's not with my fellow firefighters, and we're not standing for it anymore. Like I said, we dodged a bullet, and we're very thankful that we did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public please come and address the council?
Yeah, I have to move. Usually a good old speaker, but this one might have me a little bit. So I'm Jill Ailey. I live at 20 Olivetti Place. I am a city taxpayer. I would like to address the issue of the safe staffing at the city fire department. Like I said, I am a city taxpayer, but I'm also the wife of retired firefighter Todd Ailey. I have personally seen exactly what happens with lack of staffing. 2 years ago, my husband pulled up to a fire without adequate manning. He was doing the job duties of 3 others who were not there. Inevitably, he was injured and he ended up having to retire. I'm really not sure how many more injuries are going to occur before you're going to address staffing being an issue. I do understand, I've lived it for 26 years with him, this job is extremely physically and mentally demanding. However, knowing that these injuries are continually occurring because of lack of staffing is unacceptable to both the firefighters and the city residents. The cynical side of me knows that you're all going to oblige me. You kind of have to, because I'm a city resident, you need to hear me out. I want action. I'm tired of not having dialogue. Human lives do not have a price tag. The value of a paid and police department has been what has kept me in this city all of my life. My assessed value just went up $40,000. For what? Because I put a new roof on? Really? I would really sleep easier at night knowing that you're gonna take some of that money and actually start putting the firefighters on staff. Our community members deserve their safety. I have also contemplating
contemplated addressing this issue with you because I'm sure you might feel that I am a little biased. And on some aspect, you're probably right. However, my husband's heart and soul was his department, his brothers, and knowing he was providing for his community. What piece of that I'm biased on is I am also biased for human lives and for safety. As a taxpayer, I'm gravely concerned. I'm just wondering how much more Russian roulette we're actually going to play before you guys get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other individuals like to please come address the council?
Hi, I'm Ernie Gillespie, living at 89 Main Mill Street. First of all, I appreciate the firefighters and the police officers. They don't ever get enough credit. The next thing is, I was gonna thank Mike, but he took off on me, for fixing up the street. It has made a difference. It still shakes a little bit, but I'm pretty close to the road. The other issue is the speed limit reduction that I was talking about. Has anybody still, I know there was a lady, I think
She
Mary.
has not arrived yet, so
She's
she's
gonna-
listening until she arrives in about another 2 weeks.
And she handles what?
All the traffic orders.
All the
in
traffic.
planning
and-
department.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cause I wanna reduce the speed there from,
Right.
from Wall Street
Right.
west on the main mill to the new entrance.
What is it now, it's 30?
Yeah, well, actually, there's nothing there. If you-
So it would just go along with what the
I would
speed
assume it would
limit
be
is.
30,
Since
you
it's
know.
not posted otherwise, it would be 30,
Yeah,
right?
I'm assuming, sometimes, you get an argument with that in court sometimes. And anyhow,
And what was your recommendation, Mr.?
15. I believe.
50,
15.
which we know what's gonna happen there, they're
Yeah.
gonna do 20.
Yeah, right.
And the reason why I know the difference is, when there's a new truck that comes in, and he doesn't know where to go, he's driving slow, and you don't feel the vibration. Makes a big difference. The next issue was the MLD gate. I don't know where we're at with that, whether it's gonna happen.
Mr. Tracy's
To
not
the
here to
charging,
speak to that,
to the,
to their substation.
Substation.
Would they normally, like,
I think
put
you
out bids?
mentioned, I'm sorry, I think during the last MLD meeting, or didn't brought up that he did mention that there was
It was
security, there was security cameras, I think, there.
Okay.
oh,
But I was talking about a gate.
Yeah, yeah. But you had also brought up.
Yeah, I brought up the
Right,
security
right.
cameras, yes, definitely, because I've had to call the police twice in the last 3 days for people going, it's posted, and they're still going back there. One argued with the officer, he still wanted to go back there, said he'd been living back there all summer. And now that's something that needs to be watched and addressed, is once you get one person start living back there, pretty soon you're gonna have 25. Like I said, with all the syringes and stuff that have been found back there, it's just,
oh,
it's coming, I know it's bad all over, but, when it gets real close to home, that's when it touches you. Okay, on the gate, do they have to get bids? Is that how it works? Does anybody can answer?
I can't speak
You
for him,
can't,
we'll
okay.
have to speak.
Because my thinking is I know it was brought up, I think somewhere where I heard it somewhere, somebody said that they take the best out of 3 bids or something. My thinking is, MLD's got all you gotta do is go up to Farm and Tractor, buy a couple of gates, they've got all the equipment to put the stuff in, and you're done, probably for $200-300.
That might be something to bring up to the end.
Yeah, Ernie, I can tell you that we're doing our MLD meeting this month on the 29th. It's gonna be at 4:30.
Mr. Gillespie.
When is it again?
On the 29th on the 4:30. The last Thursday of the month at 4:30.
At 4:30 right here?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other individuals like to please come address the council?
My name is Laverne Hicks. I live at 9 Alex Way. I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Gillespie said about the gate, about people living back there, and also about the road. It's a lot better, and thank you for that. Another problem is the trucks coming in. I've talked to, Mr. McMahon, about, I believe when Bombardier first came up before either the planning board or zoning board, it was 7 to 9, the trucks were going in, that was it. Mr. McMahon informed me that it was put 6 to 10. I've asked for verification of that several times and still have not gotten it. Tuesday morning, 3 o'clock, truck went in through the back. 5:45, 2 flat beds went in there. This makes noise. I have to live there. I sleep there. I don't appreciate being woke up like that. Now, when it was first proposed, trucks were supposed to go in, out through Wall Street. They run in and out all day long through there. They don't use Wall Street. And
They
I'd
use
like to
Main
know.
Mill?
They use Main Mill in and out. And I'd like to know why. I mean, if they were given a certain ability to go one way and out the other, that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be whenever they feel like going and how they feel like going. And also, from what I'm told, the trucks are not supposed to come in. They're supposed to, if a trucker comes in the middle of the night, they're supposed to stay at the mobile station. They're not supposed to come in at all. We do have some that come in, they park in May Mail parking lot.
Are you talking about the mobile station up there on?
On
At
22.
exit
On
36.
22, yeah.
On 22,
Mhm.
yes. But they do come in. Some of them that have been told before do go in the parking lot down at the other end. Some have to be told to go down there. But we shouldn't have to put up with that.
Who tells them to go down there?
Evidently,
I get up at 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning with the diesel light on right across the street from me, and I knock rap on his door and, hey guy, there's actually DEC's put signs up, you can
Yes.
only run for 5 minutes. And, well, I got no place to park. Go down the far end if you're gonna let it run. I know it's hot out, you know, when you're running your air conditioner, go down, he does, but, you know, you gotta get up at 1:30 in the morning, tell these people to move.
And it is posted,
Yes.
sign?
it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'll see, you come up, you see there's 3 telephone poles, 4 actually.
And as far as the.
Could that be, I guess my question to that could be, or would be, could that area be gated after a certain time?
It
so
is
that-
gated.
So that no trucks are allowed to come in?
Main Mill Street, to go into Bombardier, they have to push a buzzard and talk to who's ever on the gate, cause you can hear them out there. You know, at night, sound carries. And they have to push a buzzard, tell who they are, they let them in the gate.
Okay. So Bombardier is letting them in?
Right.
Tourists, okay.
Right,
Okay.
Sometimes,
sometimes,
just if they're not there and they're not working.
so. And either we have had them park between the gate and going into from Main Mill Street. They parked in that section and ran all night.
Could there be a sign right off of South Catherine, no trucks permitted after X?
Should be
Tom?
off of coming off of Wall,
Walls-
right
Wall-
there
on
on
Wall.
Main Mill.
And, yeah, but I mean, right at Main Mill and also, off of,
Wall,
Wall.
that may be help. But, on another note, there is a speed limit. As you come off of Wall Street, there's a speed limit sign there on May Mill that says 30 miles an hour. You come off of South Catherine Street onto May Mill, there is a speed limit there, says 30 miles an hour. You come off of Wall Street, there is nothing from the wall up to the end of Main Mill, there is no speed limit. And on one more note, we have, I guess, private contractors mowing the lawns at the cemeteries now. The one fella that mows the lawn at St. John's or Mount Carmel, he parks just as you come around the corner. Makes it very dangerous. And I'm wondering if a street sign can be put, you know, that says, no parking from here to corner, because someday somebody's going to get hurt really bad. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other citizens who'd like to please come and address the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gibbs. Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, we pass along your comments to Joe as well.
Second half.